Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this most fascinating conversation where I have the pleasure of the company of two G20 ministers, where we're really going to be talking about the region's place in the world. Now, Your Excellency, you set out a great vision in your opening statement of this region being a hub, not just for the extraction, but indeed the processing and use of critical minerals. And we're going to talk about what it's going to take to make that happen. And it's such a pleasure to have you here. It's such a pleasure to have you here, Grant Shapps, the Secretary of State for the UK Government's Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. Thank you both very much.
Pleasure.
Your Excellency, first to you. I want to know, sitting here in Riyadh, how does the world look to you? In other words, as you think about this grand ambition you have set for this region on mineral development, who are your friends? Where are their tripwires?
Thank you, and thanks again for the great interest in this event. Probably, if I would think about it, I think it's important to think that what we are doing is genuine. What we are doing is something that is raising the flag, taking leadership, not as a country, but as a region. It's very clear that with only with collective efforts we can achieve the progress in the sector, in the mining sector, to satisfy the growing need of minerals. And therefore, I would love to see that the global community look at Saudi Arabia as someone who is raising the flag, saying, we need to get together, we need to act. In our ministerial roundtable yesterday, I was actually moved because I felt that 60 government officials are now actually talking about solution and not talking about complaints or excuses. And that's, to me, a great success for our roundtable and definitely for the overall forum. If we start thinking about how we will find the right solution, I can tell you we will find it. In the past, we wasted our time having excuses why we shouldn't or why we couldn't do something. Today, it's no longer the case. Today, we are all trying to find the right solution. Definitely, in some countries, some areas, it's much harder to do what other countries can do. Definitely, in Saudi Arabia, we are privileged that we have a clear leadership direction, a clear ability to change a lot of the regulatory framework. We have also probably the right combination of the minerals, the energy that we need to process these minerals so we can actually do the processing, and the demand, local and area that we are in as a country is a great location also to access different markets. But I can tell you, every country will find its own niche, will find its own reason to actually put their effort together and find the right way to do what is needed and to do what is necessary to be done. So that's probably my long answer to your short question.
I can tell, Your Excellency, you are an optimist, but I'm going to come back to you with asking about where that story could unravel. But before that, Minister Shapps, the UK is one of those countries that His Excellency describes as having taken active steps on critical minerals. Tell us about how the UK views critical minerals, their importance, and global cooperation on critical minerals.
Well, first of all, can I actually say thank you very much and to His Excellency and to everyone for such a warm welcome this morning. It's my first time in Saudi Arabia. It's been somewhere I wanted to visit all of my life, so it's wonderful to be here.
And you brought the British weather with you.
Thank you, Mr. Shapps. You kept it cool, so the temperature is what I'm used to, so thank you for that as well. And it's wonderful to be here and also to meet His Excellency again. I just think that the United Kingdom, I was having a look at when the London Metal Exchange was set up, and the answer is 1855. So the prices that are set there and have traditionally set the prices of some of those big traditional metals are now helping to set the world prices for the new critical minerals that are going to supercharge the global economy as we switch to this green revolution, electric vehicles and electric so much else, nickel and cobalt and lithium and all the rest of it. And so clearly, the United Kingdom has a big heritage in all of that, but there's more to it than that. London, not just setting those prices, but also being one of the two big financial centers of the world, also has a big role in helping to finance and fund. It's not by coincidence that some of the world's largest mineral and extraction firms are headquartered in London and are on the FTSE. So you've got all of that. But then on top of that, you've got incredible research and development. And so some of the work that's going into, whether it's battery technology or looking at how we do all sorts of things which have suddenly become really important. Take very small motors which would normally be thrown away at their end of their lives, but recycle them now. And all of those kind of research things. The UK has, let's not forget, 7 of the world's 20 top universities. More Nobel Prizes presented to the United Kingdom anywhere outside of the US. So the science, the technology, the research and development, and then on top of all of that, this will have an ending to this answer, why the UK. On top of all of that, ESG, I've heard mentioned from the stage this morning already, the rule of law, all of the things that the UK is so known for. So bringing all of that together, I think, is one of the reasons why we are well placed on this. But last year, we came up with a critical minerals strategy, one of the first countries in the world to do that, and we came up with 18 critical minerals in our strategy. When I look at Saudi Arabia, and really in a nod to the extraordinary size and scale of this country, you have 48 minerals that have been identified. And it just says to me that there's huge scope for the future development here in Saudi Arabia. I think that I share His Excellency's enthusiasm and optimism, because I think that the scale of what will be possible as the world transitions to this greener future means that, contrary to what people thought when they looked at countries like Saudi in the past and thought, well, the oil-based, that will be the past, the world will move on. People are now recognizing, and the size and scale of this Future Mineral Forum, I think, really demonstrates this, that this is where the future will be. And so the more that we're able to work together globally, but I hope very much with the UK-Saudi relationship, the better the world will be as a result.
You've both painted an amazing, inspiring vision of global cooperation on critical minerals, with this region occupying its place. If we did this, it would buck the trend globally of more nationalism that we have seen in the last few years. So let me really ask you an honest question, Your Excellency. Are you worried that as countries like in the G20, like the US, with their new Inflation Reduction Act, are looking at where they're going to get critical minerals from, they start putting in place measures that says, well, it can only come from these countries and it can't come from those, and Saudi Arabia or the region doesn't make it on the list of those countries that other G20 countries will buy from? How will we stop things like that from happening?
Well, we can't stop things like this from happening. The only thing we can do is be reasonable of our also expectations. Today, one of the things we should be proud of in this country is there is no disconnect between government and business. The way we think in the government align with business. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. And when we plan future trends, unless we involve everyone, it's going to be a wishful thinking. So yes, we do have to be worried. I'm not saying that it's a garden out there. No, but I mean also we have to see where we can start piloting some activities that will show us the way forward. Piloting is a very important issue that we tend to forget. I talked about in my opening speech, I talked about our own experience here in Saudi Arabia in aluminium. And to think that a country could actually produce aluminium and use most of it inside the country, or when export a very high-end finished products, I think that's an example that we have to see how we can duplicate. Today, in all of technologies that we have seen throughout the evolution of technology, it starts somewhere. It probably fails once or twice or 100 times, but it will make it at the end of the day if we have the right will, the right drive, the right mindset, and of course, the right regulation to make it happen. So I think I'm optimistic by nature, but I have also solid reason to be so. Today, if we talk about, a lot of people talk about, are we going to have the quantities of minerals to satisfy global needs? And I say, well, it depends how you calculate it. It's mathematics. How much time do you need to build a mine? How much time do you need to do the processing, and and then you will come up with the numbers to verify whether it will be possible or not. And this is, to me, the wrong thinking. We have to see how we can disrupt the whole thing. So if I ask you to move from this venue to the airport, knowing the traffic in Riyadh, you will tell me 45 minutes. But if I tell you, well, I have a chopper at the top of this building to take you, then it's a change of mindset. So this is the thing that we are trying to say, that we need to see how we can change the vehicles we are using. We need to change regulations. It's nonsense that investors will need to take 7 to 10 years to have a license. If we can shorten this to 6 months, imagine how would that change the formula that we are doing. So we need also, at the end of the day, we need to keep that positive spirit. Otherwise, we will go back to what I was trying to say earlier, complaining and getting reasons why we shouldn't do things. And I totally agree with His Excellency. I mean, really appreciate the UK's efforts. UK last event didn't make it because of the pandemic, but we were immediately also contacted by the UK government and by the embassy here to get into talks of how we can work together. And exactly what we see in the UK as a financial hub, as also an area of science and development, will be a great asset to what we are doing. And definitely the minerals market in the UK, which is really interesting. I have visited, and I encourage you to go and see the ring. The atmosphere there was great. So we need to identify each country and how we can collaborate with each country. And collectively, we'll see that we can all add something to the equation of speeding up minerals for the future.
Minister Shapps, the one thing the UK could indeed add to the vision that His Excellency has set out is the experience your country has had in not just operating in one part of the value chain, but actually taking what's extracted and building the use of it so everybody benefits. And this is something, Minister, that came out so strongly in yesterday's ministerial. That must be where this region goes. How did the UK do it? And is that a strong basis for cooperation?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, if you think about the UK and our industrial approach, I mean, of course, it was the first country in the world to industrialize. And as a result, we sort of went through that a long time ago, and then have ended up having to reinvent ourselves and our economy many times over. The UK famously now is much more of a service economy. But as I mentioned before, and His Excellency just referred to, the areas where we've really super specialized have been in science and research and education and all of those high value areas, which are going to help to lead all of the future industries, whether it's advanced manufacturing, critical minerals, life sciences, biotech, and so it's been, for us, it's been that movement. But if I may just address your previous point as well, which was really about what's happening with globalization, what's happening with individual sort of nationalism in countries and through supply chains. The United Kingdom will always want to stand for being that big global trader. We'll be the ones wanting to keep the doors open to allow global trade to take place. You mentioned the Inflation Reduction Act that does create some concerns at the borders, that perhaps what that's about is trying to unwind the many achievements that have come through globalization. I think there is a legitimate concern, which is particularly when we come to things like battery technology. We all know that a lot of the critical minerals are coming from one particular country, from China. And so I think it's important not to close the door to China. I think that would be the wrong approach, but rather to make sure that technology, that the mining and everything else is spread more broadly. And that is where Saudi Arabia has an extraordinary lead, not only geographically in terms of size, but location-wise, being on the bridge, in the Middle East, in the Gulf, in Africa, near Africa, near Europe, out to Asia. I mean, you couldn't invent a better place on earth than Saudi Arabia to be in this marketplace. And that's what I mean. This morning I've met with a couple of British organizations who are working very closely with His Excellency and others to make sure that cooperation works in both ways. Investment into Saudi Arabia in the critical mineral area, and the other way around on Teesside and in some of the great industrial heartlands that I was just talking about from the first industrial revolution, now in a second industrial revolution, actually brought about by our partnership with the Saudis.
So, Minister Shapps, the UK is willing and open to do business globally. I presume Your Excellency would tell us for sure that is also your vision, that Saudi Arabia is open for business globally. It's across the G20, but across the wider world too.
Definitely. I mean, today Saudi Arabia offers, I used to be a businessman, maybe you know this, and when I see the opportunities that the country offers, it's just tremendous. Again, the combination of the natural resources, oil, gas, and minerals, the location. Now, most importantly, if you see clearly what we are actually doing in our country is developing the most important asset that we have, which is our human capital. Everything we do today is focusing on developing the human capital to be a global citizen. This is one of our aims. By doing so, we are also creating the atmosphere for investors to come to Saudi, look at Saudi as a great local market, but also as a great access to different markets. As His Excellency rightly said, we are beautifully located. Logistics are also great. We are investing in that. Connectivity. Also, we are betting in technology. Technology today needs governments more than ever, because today governments need the right regulation, the right infrastructure in connectivity, and also the right drive to make that connectivity enabling the adaptation of new technologies. Without that, we will not be able to get the best. And so if you look at this overall combination of Saudi as an investor, this is a great place to invest.
And you have a football team that beat the final, the
yes.
winners, and Cristiano Ronaldo.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Minister Shapps, you will have the last word, and it'll be a quick one, which is simply to ask you, this is your first visit to the region, what is your vision for cooperation between the UK and Saudi Arabia on critical minerals, but perhaps more broadly too?
Well, Saudi doesn't only have a football team that manages to beat the Argentinians, who then go on to win the World Cup, but also a very good football team doing very well in the Northeast in Newcastle. So it's a double win. Look, I think, and we have a very long-term historic relationship, and I think it's never been closer than it's becoming now. There's a huge amount of joint interest, and actually, as His Excellency was saying, the human capital and the investment, and you only have to look at the way that the number of women in the workforce is now shooting up. I think I saw in a very short time, from 11%, I think I saw to 37% in recent figures, shows how the human capital is now being properly deployed and the advantages that's having to the economy and to citizens. So I think we're only in the foothills here of the extent to which we can work together to improve the lives of our citizens, but also citizens globally through our partnerships.
Well, that was an uplifting session. Thank you, Excellencies. If your vision is right, then cooperation rather than conflict will be the basis for critical minerals with this region at the center. Please join me in thanking the two. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.